It is a joke from 60 years ago, buried inside a declassified British Foreign Office document written in 1965 by a senior British official who had just been informed that 10,000 people had been arrested by the Indonesian military. People accused of being communists. People who would, in many cases, never be seen again. His response, written on official British government paper and filed in the National Archives, reads as follows: "I hope they do not throw the 10,005 into the sea. Otherwise it will cause quite a shipping hazard." A joke about bodies. Written by a British official. While Britain was actively helping the Indonesian military kill them, those files were hidden for 60 years. My name is the voice behind Creepy Chronicles, and this channel investigates the real events, documented, verifiable, and deliberately kept from you, that those in power would prefer you never looked at too carefully. What I am about to tell you is not a theory. It is not speculation. It is drawn directly from British and American government files, declassified and confirmed in September 2025, which show that Harold Wilson's Labour government was an active participant in one of the worst massacres of the 20th century. Between 500,000 and 1 million people were killed in Indonesia in 1965 and 1966, and Britain helped make it happen, then spent 60 years making sure you didn't know. To understand what Britain did, you need to understand what happened in Indonesia in 1965. Indonesia in the mid-1960s was one of the most strategically important countries in the world. It sat at the crossroads of Asia and the Pacific. It had vast natural resources, and its president, Suharto, was a nationalist who refused to align fully with either the United States or the Soviet Union. For Britain and America, locked in the Cold War, this was unacceptable. Indonesia had the third largest communist party in the world, the PKI, with approximately 3 million members. Western governments were convinced that if Sukarno fell, Indonesia would fall to communism, and if Indonesia fell, the dominoes would follow. On the 30th of September 1965, a group of army officers assassinated 6 Indonesian generals. The military, led by General Suharto, immediately blamed the PKI, the Communist Party, and what followed was one of the most systematic and brutal massacres in modern history. The army and its affiliated militias moved through cities, towns and villages. Anyone suspected of PKI membership or sympathy was targeted. That included not just party members, but their families, their neighbors, and anyone the local military commander decided to name. Within months, between 500,000 and 1 million people were dead. Here is where Britain enters the story. The British government had a secret propaganda unit called the Information Research Department, the IRD. Officially, it was a Cold War communications operation. In practice, it produced and distributed disinformation designed to shape political outcomes in countries that Britain considered strategically important. In October 1965, within days of the massacre beginning, the IRD began producing newsletters and radio broadcasts targeting Indonesia. These materials blamed the PKI for the assassination of the generals. They called for the PKI and all communist organizations to be, quote, eliminated. They were designed to look like they had been written by Indonesian patriots, exiled dissidents with no connection to any foreign government. They were written by British operatives in Singapore. The declassified files are explicit on this point. There is no ambiguity. British government operatives wrote material calling for the elimination of a political party. That material was distributed in Indonesia during a period when members of that party were being systematically murdered by the army, and Britain knew exactly what was happening to them. The declassified documents do not allow for polite interpretation. British officials were not passive observers who later regretted their silence. The files show active, enthusiastic support for the massacre. One British official noted that the killings were, quote, a necessary task that needed to be completed before normal politics could resume. Another described the elimination of the PKI as a, quote, good thing. Historian Mark Curtis, whose book Web of Deceit draws directly from these National Archives files, found that British officials reviewed the progress of the killings and expressed no concern for the scale of the violence whatsoever. The only reference to discomfort, the only one, was the concern about bodies causing a shipping hazard. The files also confirm that British officials were receiving regular intelligence updates on the killings as they happened. They knew the scale. They knew who was being targeted, and they continued to provide propaganda support and political encouragement throughout. The motive, when you read the files, is completely clear, and it is not ideological. It is economic and strategic. Britain had significant commercial interests in Indonesia and the surrounding region. It was fighting a separate conflict, called Confrontation, against Indonesia's territorial ambitions in Borneo, and had tens of thousands of troops deployed there. A communist Indonesia would have been catastrophic for British military and commercial interests across Southeast Asia. Suharto's rise to power, enabled by the massacre, opened Indonesia to Western investment almost immediately. Within years of the killings, British and American companies were operating across Indonesian industry, extracting the natural resources that Sukarno had sought to protect from foreign exploitation. The files confirm that British officials understood this connection entirely. The elimination of the PKI was not just an ideological victory, it was a commercial one, and Britain was prepared to help achieve it regardless of the human cost. The 1965 Indonesian massacre is described by the CIA's own declassified documents as one of the worst mass murders of the 20th century. More people were killed in Indonesia in 1965 and 1966 than in the Rwandan genocide of 1994, more than in the Cambodian killing fields, more than in the Bosnian War. It is one of the largest acts of mass killing in modern history. The survivors and descendants of those killed have been asking the British government for 60 years to acknowledge its role. Survivors of the massacre, now elderly, have given testimony to researchers and journalists about what happened to their families. A survivor group in Indonesia has formally requested a British apology. No apology has been issued. No inquiry has been held. No minister has stood in Parliament and addressed what the declassified files confirm. When Declassified UK published the full account of Britain's role in September 2025, it was covered by progressive media outlets and specialist publications. It was not covered by the BBC. It was not discussed in Parliament. It did not generate a government response. 60 years of classified files, and when those files were finally opened, near total institutional silence. I want to return to that joke. A British official, told that 10,000 people had been arrested by a military conducting a massacre, made a joke about bodies causing a shipping hazard. He did not raise a concern. He did not file a protest. He did not recommend that Britain reconsider its support. The Indonesia massacre was not a secret. It was widely reported at the time, and that joke is now sitting in the National Archives. Confirmed. Declassified. Available for anyone to read. The Indonesia massacre was not a secret. It was widely reported at the time. What was secret was Britain's role in it. What was hidden for 60 years was the evidence that the British government did not just observe what was happening. It helped, it cheered, and it profited. Creepy Chronicles investigates the cases the official record would rather you never found. Every Thursday and every Sunday, real, documented, told without apology. Share this with someone who still believes that British foreign policy has always been about defending democracy. The files say otherwise. They always did.